a faint sound, almost impossible to hear over the roaring Arctic wind. Tyson Steele looks up at the endless gray sky. His eyes are heavy, his hands are black with soot and severe frostbite. Through the blur of the snowstorm, he sees it. A helicopter. A yellow state trooper helicopter, high above the frozen trees. This is his last chance, his final breath of hope. Tyson tries to scream, but no sound comes out. His throat is frozen. He waves his stiff arms frantically. His body is running on empty. For 20 days he has been trapped here. 20 days alone in the absolute isolation of the Alaskan wilderness. No phone signal, no food left, no fire to keep him warm. Just a makeshift shelter built from cold ash and burned cardboard. The helicopter passes over. It keeps flying. Tyson's heart drops into a dark, bottomless pit. Did they see him? Or is he left here to freeze to death? Suddenly, the aircraft banks hard to the left. It starts descending toward the snow. Tyson collapses onto his knees. The tears on his face freeze instantly in the -20-degree air. He is about to be rescued. But to understand how he survived this icy hell, we have to go back to the beginning, to the moment one tiny mistake turned a winter dream into a living nightmare. Tyson Steele was not an ordinary man. He was a survivalist, an outdoorsman, a person who found peace in places most people would call terrifying. In September 2019, Tyson purchased a remote homestead. It was located deep inside the Susitna Valley of Alaska. The nearest road was 20 miles away. The nearest human being didn't exist for miles. His home was a simple, sturdy wooden cabin. It had logs for walls, a tin roof, and a wood-burning stove. For Tyson, this was paradise. He had no electricity, no running water, no internet, just the raw, unfiltered beauty of the Alaskan forest. His only companion was his beloved dog, a chocolate Labrador named Buddy. Together they spent the autumn preparing for the brutal winter ahead. Tyson cut down massive pine trees for firewood. He stacked hundreds of logs against the cabin walls. He filled his shelves with canned goods, rice, beans, and meat. He tested his satellite communication tool. He felt completely ready. He respected the power of winter in Alaska. He knew that temperatures could plunge to 30 below zero within hours. He knew that a single misstep in the snow could mean a broken leg and a slow death. But Tyson was confident. He had the skills. He had the food. He had the shelter. What he didn't realize was that nature doesn't care about your preparation. All it takes is one spark. It was mid-December. The sun in Alaska barely rises during this time of year. Outside, a thick blanket of white snow covered the landscape. Inside the cabin, it was warm and cozy. The wood stove was glowing red. Tyson was relaxing, listening to the quiet crackle of the fire. Around 1 a.m., the cabin started getting a bit cold. Tyson opened the heavy iron door of the wood stove. He wanted to stoke the flames before going to sleep. He grabbed a piece of thick, dry cardboard to help catch the fire. He tossed it inside. It was a routine action. He had done it 100 times before. But this night was different. A powerful gust of wind howled outside, pushing down through the chimney pipe. A massive burst of air shot backward into the stove. A single, glowing ember flew out of the door. It didn't land on the floor. It shot upward, landing directly on the dry roof, framing near the chimney. Tyson didn't see it immediately. He closed the stove door and sat back down. Minutes passed. Then a strange sound caught his attention. A low, angry crackling above his head. He looked up. Through the gaps in the ceiling logs, he saw a bright orange light. The roof was on fire. Panic is the first thing that kills you in the wilderness. Tyson knew this, but the speed of the flames was terrifying. He grabbed a bucket of water and threw it at the ceiling. It did nothing. The fire had already found the dry insulation. Thick, toxic black smoke began to fill the small room. It dropped from the ceiling like a heavy blanket. Tyson couldn't breathe. His eyes were burning. He realized the cabin was lost. He had to get out. He rushed toward the door, screaming for his dog, Buddy. He grabbed a sleeping bag and a heavy winter coat from the hook. As he burst through the front door into the freezing night, he looked back. Buddy was terrified. The dog had run upstairs to the loft, hiding from the smoke. Tyson dropped his gear and charged back into the roaring furnace. "Buddy, come here!" he yelled through the suffocating smoke. But it was too dark. The heat was immense. The plastic on his boots was beginning to melt. A loud crash echoed through the cabin as part of the ceiling collapsed. Tyson was forced backward, coughing blood and ash. He stumbled out into the snow, gasping for fresh air. He watched in absolute horror as his entire life burned to the ground. His shelter was gone. His winter clothes were gone. His satellite phone, his maps, his food, his rifle, all gone. And worst of all, his loyal companion was trapped inside. Tyson stood in the snow, wearing only long underwear and a light jacket. The temperature outside was -15 degrees. He was completely alone in the dark. And the clock to his survival had just started ticking. The first night was a battle for life. The fire burned for hours, acting as a terrible, giant torch in the dark. Tyson sat on his frozen sleeping bag, just a few feet from the flames. He used the heat of his burning home to keep from freezing to death. But he knew this heat wouldn't last. By morning, the cabin was nothing but a pile of glowing, black ash. The sun never really came up, just a pale gray light. The reality of his situation hit Tyson like a physical blow. He was 20 miles from civilization in the middle of an Alaskan winter. He had no snowshoes. Walking out through 5 feet of powdery snow was impossible. He would freeze to death within the first mile. His feet were already numb. He looked down. He had no winter boots. He was wearing mismatched socks and light slippers. He had to think. He had to act. Tyson began to dig through the smoking ruins with his bare hands. The ash was burning hot, but the air around him was freezing. He managed to salvage a few cans of food. But there was a problem. The intense heat of the fire had caused the cans to explode. The food inside was covered in toxic melted plastic and ash. He also found a jar of peanut butter. It was charred, but intact. This jar, along with a few remaining undamaged cans, was all the food he had. For how long? He didn't know. Without shelter, the wind would kill him by nightfall. Tyson needed a home. He gathered pieces of corrugated tin roofing that had survived the fire. He leaned them against each other to form a small, pyramid-shaped tent. Inside, he piled up the warm, gray ash from the burned wood. It sounds crazy, but ash retains heat and acts as a natural insulator. He covered the floor with charred logs and pieces of wet canvas. His new home was tiny. It was dark. It smelled like smoke and ruin. He couldn't stand up inside it. He could only crawl. But it blocked the wind. And in Alaska, that is the difference between life and death. The temperature inside his ash fortress was barely above freezing. Every night, Tyson crawled into his sleeping bag and pulled the canvas over his head. He shivered so violently that his muscles ached. He slept in short, 30-minute bursts, waking up constantly to move his fingers and toes, to make sure the frostbite hadn't taken them. Loneliness became a heavy, physical weight. He missed his dog, Buddy. The silence of the forest was deafening, but Tyson refused to let the darkness win. Days began to blur into one another. Tyson lost track of time. Was it day 7? Day 10? His food supply was dwindling rapidly. He rationed his peanut butter, eating only 1 small teaspoon a day. To get water, he melted snow in a rusted pot over a tiny fire he managed to start. But melting snow takes time and energy, and Tyson was running out of both. His body was consuming itself. He lost over 20 pounds in less than 2 weeks. His ribs pressed against his skin. His skin turned a sickly, pale gray. He spent his days sitting by his tiny fire, staring at the empty white horizon. Every distant sound made his heart leap. A breaking branch, the wind in the trees. He would jump up, thinking it was a rescue plane. But there was nothing, just the endless, uncaring trees. Tyson realized that his family and friends back home probably didn't know he was missing yet. He had told them he would be isolated for the winter. They wouldn't start worrying for weeks, maybe months. He realized a terrifying truth. If he wanted to be saved, he had to make himself visible from space. On day 15, a heavy blizzard hit the valley. It threatened to bury Tyson's tiny tin shelter completely, but it also gave him an idea. The fresh snowfall created a perfectly smooth, white canvas around his camp. Tyson found a bucket of black, powdery coal dust from the ruins. Using his hands and a broken piece of wood, he began to write. He dragged his feet through the deep snow, stamping out giant letters. Inside the trenches, he poured the black coal dust, letter by letter, SOS. The distress signal was massive. Each letter was over 15 feet tall. The black coal stood out in sharp contrast against the brilliant white snow. It was an exhausting job. Tyson collapsed multiple times while making it. His breath came in ragged gasps. His heart hammered in his chest. But when he was finished, he looked at his work. It was a masterpiece of survival. Now all he could do was wait and pray that someone looked down. It was the morning of January 6th, 2020, day 20. Tyson was at his absolute limit. His peanut butter jar was empty. He was too weak to gather more wood. He lay inside his sleeping bag, feeling a strange, dangerous warmth spreading through his body. He knew what that meant. Hypothermia was taking over. His brain was shutting down. And then, the sound, not a trick of the mind. A real, heavy, rhythmic thumping. Chop, 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 chop. An Alaska State Trooper helicopter was flying a routine mission over the valley. The pilot wasn't looking for Tyson. No one had reported him missing. But as the helicopter flew over the clearing, the pilot caught a glimpse of something strange. A giant black mark in the endless white. SOS. The pilot banked the helicopter and descended. When the crew landed, they found a man who looked like a ghost. His clothes were torn, his beard was matted with ice, and his hands were black. But he was breathing. He was alive. Tyson Steele had defeated the Alaskan winter. He survived because he didn't focus on the 20 days ahead. He focused on the next 5 minutes, the next task, the next breath. His story is a reminder that when you lose everything, the only thing you have left is your will to survive. Tyson Steele lost his home and his dog, but he never lost his hope. What part of his 20-day journey shocked you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible survival stories. End.